The human fleet moved through space like a storm. 200 warships, each one built in the 6 months since the betrayal. They were ugly ships built for killing, not exploring. Every weapon pointed forward. Every system designed for war. Captain Myre Park commanded the flagship, the UNS Indomitable. The name meant something that could not be defeated. She sat in her chair and watched the stars ahead. Somewhere in those stars was a Vrelian colony called Thek 7. 6 million Vrelians lived there, mining rare minerals. Soon, those 6 million would learn what betrayal cost. On Earth, Dr. Hyen Choi worked 20 hours a day. His laboratory never slept. Scientists and engineers crowded around computers and testing chambers. They were changing everything humans knew about war. Jan had invented a new engine that made ships 3 times faster than before. Human ships could now outrun anything the Vrelians had. He created armor that learned from damage, getting stronger each time it was hit. He designed weapons that specifically targeted Vrelian biology. The most powerful weapon was called the resonance device. It sent out waves that destroyed Vrelian building materials but passed through human structures harmlessly. One ship with this weapon could level an entire city in minutes. When Hyun first tested it, his hands trembled. He knew what this weapon meant. He knew what it would do. Admiral Doyen Kim watched the test and immediately ordered 1,000 units built. "Doctor, you have given humanity the tools for victory," Doyen said. Hyun nodded, but did not smile. Victory would be built on mountains of corpses. Some would be Vrelian, some would be human. All would haunt him. Commander Ji-won Lee trained a special team called Strike Team Phantom. These were soldiers trained for impossible missions. They learned to infiltrate enemy bases, assassinate leaders, and disappear like ghosts. Lee was 31 years old and had never lost a mission. She was also becoming something other than human. Each mission stripped away more of her emotions. She stopped sleeping well. She stopped laughing. She became a weapon in human form, precise and deadly. Her team loved her and feared her in equal measure. The fleet arrived at Thek 7 after 2 weeks of travel. The Vrelian defense fleet detected them immediately. Alarms rang across the colony. Ships scrambled to form a defensive line. They had 80 warships. They thought it was enough. It was not. Myre gave her orders calmly. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. They had trained for this battle for months. Every captain knew their role. Every pilot knew their target. The battle lasted 47 minutes. That number was deliberate. 47,000 humans died at Concordia. 47 minutes to destroy the Vrelian fleet. Human ships moved 3 times faster than Vrelian vessels. They dodged attacks that should have killed them. Their weapons tore through Vrelian armor like paper. The Vrelian fleet tried to fight back, but they were fighting technology they could not match. When the last Vrelian warship exploded, Myre opened a communication channel to the colony below. "People of Thek 7, you have 1 hour to evacuate. After 1 hour, we will destroy everything you have built. Your cities, your mines, your infrastructure. All of it will burn. We will let you live so you can tell your leaders what happens when you betray humanity." The colony erupted in chaos. 6 million Vrelians fled to evacuation ships. They left behind homes, possessions, memories. They ran for their lives while human warships waited in orbit. After 1 hour, Myre gave the order. The resonance weapons activated. Buildings collapsed. Mines caved in. Power plants exploded. In 30 minutes, a thriving colony became ruins. Myre watched it happen and felt nothing. She remembered Concordia Station. She remembered her friends dying. This was not cruelty. This was justice. But one of her officers, a young ensign named Taeyang Yoon, watched with wide eyes. He was 22 years old. He had enlisted the day after the betrayal. He had trained for 6 months, and this was his first battle. He saw the cities fall and wondered if this was what victory looked like. He kept his thoughts to himself. There was no room for doubt in this war. News of Thek 7 spread through Vrelian space like fire. The collective held emergency meetings. Their military leaders studied the battle recordings and realized the truth. Humanity had not just survived. Humanity had become dangerous. While the fleet fought openly, Commander Lee worked in shadows. Her team infiltrated a Vrelian weapons research station. They moved silently through corridors, killed guards without sound, and stole data worth billions. The data revealed new Vrelian weapons being developed. It showed defensive plans for major colonies. It gave humanity a map to victory. Lee transmitted everything to Admiral Doyen and escaped before anyone knew they were there. 2 weeks later, 3 Varelian military commanders died in their sleep. Official reports called it natural causes. Strike Team Phantom knew different. Lee had personally killed each one, leaving no evidence, creating no witnesses. She returned to Earth and reported success. Doyen congratulated her. She accepted the praise with empty eyes. Each mission took something from her. Soon there would be nothing left to take. Ambassador So-Min Han watched all of this from Earth. She attended the planning meetings but spoke less each time. She had advocated for restraint and mercy. Nobody listened anymore. The war had its own momentum now. She visited Hyon in his laboratory one night. He looked terrible. His skin was pale. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. Empty coffee cups covered his desk. "Doctor, you need to rest," she said gently. "I cannot rest while Vrelians still breathe," he replied. "Every hour I sleep, they prepare. Every day I waste, more humans might die. And what will be left of you when this war ends?" Hyun looked at her with haunted eyes. He had no answer. The human fleet continued its campaign. They struck 4 more colonies in 3 months. Each battle was swift and decisive. Each victory cost the Vrelians dearly. The pattern was always the same. Destroy the military, evacuate the civilians, demolish the infrastructure, leave nothing but ruins and messages. The message was clear. Humanity would take everything the Vrelians had. Young Taeyang served on the Indomitable and proved himself an excellent pilot. He flew fighter missions with skill and courage. He destroyed enemy ships without hesitation. He was exactly what the war needed. But sometimes, late at night, he wondered what he was becoming. He had killed hundreds of Vrelians in ship-to-ship combat. He felt nothing when he did it. Was that strength, or was something wrong with him? He asked Captain Mirai once. She looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Ensign, they killed 15 billion of us while pretending to be friends. They studied us to find the best way to murder us. Your feelings died when they chose treachery. Mine did too. We do what we must." Taeyang nodded and returned to his duties. He did not ask again. 1 year after the betrayal, Admiral Doyen Kim stood before the entire human fleet in a recorded address. Every ship played his message. Every soldier watched their admiral speak. 1 year ago, the Vrelians tried to destroy us. They murdered 15 billion of our people. They attacked us during a peace ceremony. They chose the path of treachery. We have chosen the path of conquest. In 1 year, we have proven that humanity will not die. We have destroyed their fleets. We have taken their colonies. We have shown them that betraying humanity was the worst mistake they ever made. But we are not finished. We will not be finished until the Vrelian collective no longer exists, until every species that supported them kneels before humanity, until the galaxy knows that humanity is not prey. We are the storm. We are the reckoning. We are humanity awakened. And we will not stop. The fleet erupted in cheers. Soldiers shouted their approval. Ships sounded their horns. Humanity had found its purpose in vengeance. In Vrelian space, leaders watched this address with growing horror. They had awakened something they could not control. The species they tried to exterminate had become an unstoppable force, and humanity was just getting started. 2 years into the war, humanity controlled 12 sectors of what used to be Vrelian space. The easy victories were over. Now came the hard part. The Vrelians had learned to fight back. They built better defenses. They studied human tactics. They stopped running and started resisting. Every planet became a battlefield. Every moon held soldiers. Every asteroid could hide a weapons platform. The war that started with speed and fury had become a grinding, bloody struggle. Admiral Doyen Kim looked older now. His hair was completely gray. Lines covered his face. He slept 3 hours a night and made decisions that cost thousands of lives. Each decision was necessary. Each one hurt. He planned the biggest operation of the war, the siege of SciFiPrime, the home world of the species that led the betrayal. 4 billion Vrelians lived on that planet. It was their capital, their heart, their symbol. Doyen would take it from them. 300 human warships surrounded SciFiPrime. Captain Mirai Park commanded the blockade. Nothing entered the planet. Nothing left. Food supplies dwindled. Medicine ran out. Power systems failed. The siege lasted 8 months. Mirai watched the planet slowly die. She knew millions were suffering below. Children were hungry. Hospitals had no supplies. People were desperate. She felt nothing but cold satisfaction. They had done worse to humanity. Lieutenant Taeyang Yoon, now promoted for his service, flew patrol missions around the blockade. He was 24 years old and had spent 2 years in constant combat. War was all he knew. Peace was a story old people told. During one patrol, he detected a small ship trying to escape the planet. His orders were clear. Nobody leaves. He moved to intercept. The ship did not fight back. It was not a military vessel. His scanners showed life signs inside. Many life signs, children. Taeyang hesitated. These were not soldiers. These were just children trying to escape a dying world. His finger hovered over the trigger. He thought about his orders. He thought about the 15 billion humans who died. He thought about what kind of person he wanted to be. He let the ship go. When he returned, he reported engine failure prevented interception. Captain Mireille looked at him for a long moment. She knew he was lying. She said nothing and approved his report. Maybe some mercy was still possible. While the siege continued, the Vrelian collective gathered its remaining strength for one massive battle. 800 warships assembled at the Nexus Gate, a strategic point connecting 5 sectors. If humanity captured it, Vrelian space would split in half. Doyen sent 400 ships to take the gate. Mirai temporarily left the blockade to command part of the assault. This would be the largest battle of the war. The battle raged for 3 days. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Debris filled the space around the gate. Both sides threw everything they had into the fight. Human technology was superior, but the Vrelians had numbers. Taeyang flew mission after mission until he could barely see straight. On the second day, he found himself alone against a Vrelian carrier. The massive ship launched fighters in swarms. Taeyang should have retreated. Instead, he attacked. He dodged through enemy fire like dancing through rain. His weapons destroyed fighter after fighter. He found a weak point in the carrier's shields and fired everything he had. The carrier exploded. He barely escaped the blast. When he returned to the Indomitable, Mireille herself met him in the hangar. She promoted him to full lieutenant commander on the spot. Humanity won the Battle of Nexus Gate, but the cost was terrible. 70 human ships destroyed. 20,000 personnel dead. Mireille walked through the casualty reports and felt something break inside her. She went to her quarters and locked the door. For the first time in 2 years, she cried. She cried for her dead friends, for the soldiers she commanded to their deaths, for the person she used to be before the war. When she emerged, her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. She had work to do. Grief was a luxury commanders could not afford. Commander Jiwan Lee received intelligence about a secret meeting of the Vrelian High Council. They were planning to use biological weapons against human colonies, weapons designed to kill only humans, leaving everything else intact. Lee's orders were to capture the council alive. Admiral Doyen wanted to put them on trial. Ambassador Soman wanted justice done properly, not through assassination. Lee led Strike Team Phantom deep into enemy territory. They infiltrated the council's hidden station. They moved through corridors like shadows. They neutralized guards without sound. She found the council in session discussing which human colonies to destroy first. She listened to them debate killing billions. She heard them laugh about human suffering. She thought about her orders. She thought about justice. She thought about the biological weapons that would kill countless humans if she let these leaders live long enough to stand trial. She executed all of them. When she returned to Earth, Doyen asked for her report. She told him the truth. He was silent for a long moment, then nodded. "You did what was necessary, Commander." Soman was present. She looked horrified. This was not justice. This was murder. "Admiral, we are becoming like them," she said quietly. "No," Doyen replied. "We are becoming what we must to survive." "There is a difference," Lee said nothing. She felt empty inside, like something vital had been removed. She had killed many enemies in combat, but executing unarmed prisoners was different. It changed something fundamental. She wondered if she would ever feel human again. On Earth, Dr. Hyun Choi reached his breaking point. He had just finished designing a weapon that caused agonizing death to Vrelian biology. It would make them suffer for hours before dying. It was efficient and terrible. That night he tried to end his own life. Ambassador Somin found him in time. She called medical help and stayed with him while doctors saved him. When he woke, she was still there. "Why did you stop me?" he asked. "I have become a monster. I create weapons that torture people to death." What am I anymore? Soman took his hand. She looked tired. The war had aged her too. Doctor, if humanity is to keep its soul through this war, people like you must remember why we fight. Not just against the Vrelians, but for something better. Your guilt means you are still human. That matters. Hyun began therapy. He continued his work but refused to design torture weapons. He focused on technology that was effective but not cruel. It was a small mercy in a merciless war. The siege of HFY finally ended when the planetary government surrendered. They had no choice. Their people were dying. Their infrastructure was destroyed. They broadcast their surrender to every human ship. Doyen accepted. Human troops landed on HFY. They occupied the capital city. They raised the human flag over buildings that had stood for 1,000 years. Doyen himself walked up the steps of the Vrelian Capitol building. Cameras from across human space watched. He stood where Vrelian leaders once stood and made an announcement that changed the galaxy. The Vrelian collective is dissolved. These territories now belong to humanity. The species that chose treachery will now live under human rule. This is the price of betrayal. This is the cost of attempting genocide. We gave you peace and you answered with murder. We offered friendship and you answered with treachery. Now you will answer to us. Across Vrelian space, billions watched their civilization end. Some wept, some raged, some simply accepted it. They had lost, humanity had won its war of conquest. But winning the war was only the beginning. Now they had to govern an empire built on vengeance. That would prove even harder than the fighting. Admiral Doyen Kim stood at the window of Concordia Station and watched the stars. He was 57 years old and had spent 30 years serving humanity among those stars. Today was supposed to be the best day of his life. Today humans and aliens would sign a treaty of friendship that would last forever. Behind him, 50,000 humans filled the massive station. Diplomats prepared speeches. Scientists set up displays of human technology. Children ran through the halls, excited to meet alien friends. Everyone believed in peace. Everyone trusted the Vrelians, Doyen believed too. For 70 years, humanity had explored space. They had met the Vrelian collective 30 years ago. The Vrelians were 18 different alien species who worked together. They seemed kind. They seemed honest. They invited humanity to join them. Captain Mireille Park entered the room. She was 42 years old and commanded a warship, but today she wore a dress uniform for the ceremony. Her face looked worried. "Admiral, something feels wrong," she said. "Our scouts report Vrelian military ships near our colonies." "More ships than usual," Doyen smiled at her. "Captain, you worry too much. They are probably coming to celebrate with us. Today we become partners," Mireille wanted to argue, but she stayed quiet. She trusted her admiral. She had to trust him. In another part of the station, Dr. Hyen Choi prepared his presentation. He was 35 years old and had invented new medical technology that could save millions of lives. He planned to give this technology to the Vrelians as a gift. He believed science could unite all species. Ambassador Somin Han practiced her speech one more time. She was 48 years old and had worked for peace her entire career. Her speech talked about cooperation, friendship, and a shared future. She believed every word. The ceremony began at noon. Thousands of humans gathered in the Great Hall. Vrelian leaders stood on the stage. Cameras broadcast the event to Earth and every human colony. This was history being made. Somin gave her speech. She spoke about hope and unity. The crowd cheered. The Vrelian leader approached the signing table. He held a pen. He smiled, then the lights went out. For 1 second there was only darkness and confusion. Then the screaming began. Hidden weapons activated throughout the station. Vrelian soldiers appeared from nowhere, firing into the crowds. The walls exploded. The air began rushing out into space. Humans ran in every direction, but there was nowhere to go. Mireille was near an emergency shuttle bay when the attack started. She saw her friends die around her. She saw children floating in the vacuum. She ran to a shuttle and barely escaped. As she flew away, she watched Concordia Station tear itself apart. 47,000 humans died in minutes. Doyen survived in a protected command center with Somin and a few officers. They sealed the doors and tried to understand what was happening. Communications were dying, but they heard enough. This was not just an attack on the station. This was an attack everywhere. Vrelian fleets struck human colonies across 3 sectors of space. The attacks were coordinated, planned for years. Colony after colony went silent. 15 billion humans died in the first day. 21 colonies were completely destroyed. Earth itself came under attack. A massive Vrelian fleet appeared and began bombarding cities. But Earth had more defenses than the colonies. The human fleet fought back with desperate fury. Ships rammed into each other. Captains made suicide runs to protect their homeworld. Earth survived, but millions still died. Dr. Choi found himself trapped in a sealed laboratory. While he waited for rescue, he accessed the station's computer system. What he found made him sick. The Vrelians had been studying humans for decades. Every piece of technology humans shared, the Vrelians analyzed for weaknesses. Every diplomatic meeting was actually intelligence gathering. The files explained everything. The Vrelians feared humans. Humanity advanced too quickly, learned too fast, adapted too well. The collective decided that humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated. They planned this betrayal for 10 years. The Peace Summit was a trap. They wanted to kill all of humanity's leaders in one place. They wanted to destroy the colonies while Earth's best ships were at the ceremony. They wanted to finish humanity in a single day. They failed, but not by much. Mireille's shuttle reached a human military outpost 3 days later. She had not eaten or slept. Her uniform was torn and bloody. When they asked her what happened, she could barely speak. She just kept repeating the numbers. 47,000 at Concordia, 15 billion everywhere else. Doyen was rescued a week later. He had aged 10 years and 7 days. His hair had turned gray. His hands shook, but his eyes were different now. The kindness was gone. Something cold had replaced it. The surviving human leaders gathered on Earth in an emergency meeting. The room was half empty. So many leaders were dead. President Kim spoke first. We trusted them. We offered them friendship. They answered with genocide. What do we do now? Soman stood up. Her voice was weak. She had watched people die in front of her, but she still believed in peace. We must respond with strength, but not with cruelty. We defend ourselves. We make them pay for what they did. But we do not become like them. Many people nodded, but others shook their heads. Then Doyen stood. Everyone went quiet. He was the most respected military officer alive. When he spoke, his voice was ice. 15 billion humans are dead. Not soldiers, civilians, children. They killed them while pretending to be our friends. They studied us to find the best way to murder us. This was not an act of war. This was attempted genocide. He paused and looked at each person in the room. There will be no negotiation. There will be no peace talks. There will be no mercy. We will take everything they have. We will conquer every world they control. We will destroy their military, occupy their planets, and dismantle their entire civilization. They tried to end humanity. Instead, they have awakened something they cannot stop. I propose total war. Complete conquest. We do not stop until the Vrelian collective no longer exists. The room erupted. Some people cheered. Some people protested. But when they voted, the result was clear. Humanity chose vengeance. Mireille heard the news in a hospital bed. She was recovering from injuries. When they told her about the vote, she closed her eyes. She thought about her friends who died, her family who died. She thought about the peaceful life she would never have. Then she got out of bed. She put on a new uniform. She walked to the recruitment office and volunteered for the first attack. When they asked her why, she gave a simple answer. They chose treachery. We choose conquest. Earth transformed overnight. Every factory began making weapons. Every shipyard built warships. Universities stopped teaching art and literature and focused only on military science. The entire human species became a war machine. Dr. Choi locked himself in a laboratory. He had dedicated his life to saving lives. Now he would dedicate it to taking them. He began designing weapons specifically to kill Vrelians. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He just worked, driven by rage and grief. Across human space, young people enlisted by the millions. They had seen the images from Concordia. They had lost family in the colonies. They wanted revenge. The Vrelian collective watched this transformation with growing fear. They had expected humanity to collapse. They had expected surrender. Instead, they saw something terrifying. They saw a species that refused to die. 6 months after the betrayal, Admiral Doyen Kim stood on the bridge of a new warship. Behind him was a fleet of 200 ships. Before him was Vrelian space. He gave the order that would change everything. All ships advance. Show them what humanity does to traitors. The war had begun. 3 years after the betrayal, humanity ruled an empire, 417 worlds, trillions of alien inhabitants, an empire built on blood and vengeance. The fighting was over, but the hard work was just beginning. Admiral Do-Yoon Kim was now more politician than soldier. He spent his days managing governors, settling disputes, and trying to transform conquered territory into something stable. He was 59 years old and felt 90. Winning was easy compared to ruling. Captain Mirai Park was assigned to govern the Vrelian home sector. She commanded human troops and administered laws for a population that outnumbered her forces 10,000 to 1. Every day could bring rebellion. Every decision could spark violence. She chose to be firm but fair. She enforced laws equally on humans and Vrelians. She invested in infrastructure and medicine. She allowed Vrelian culture to continue as long as it did not threaten human authority. Some humans called her soft. They wanted harsher rule. They wanted punishment, not governance. Mirai ignored them. She had seen enough destruction. Now she wanted to build something. The Vrelians gave her a name. They called her the Merciful Tyrant. It was not affection, but it was not pure hatred either. It was grudging respect. Commander Jiwon Lee found new work-hunting resistance fighters. Groups of Vrelians refused to accept human rule. They conducted terrorist attacks. They sabotaged infrastructure. They killed human administrators. Lee's job was to stop them without massacring civilians. It was harder than war. In war, enemies wore uniforms. In occupation, enemies looked like everyone else. She tracked one resistance cell for 6 months. When she finally found them, they were hiding in a school. Vrelian children played in the courtyard, unaware of the weapons hidden in the basement. Lee could have destroyed the building. Quick and efficient. But those children would die. Instead, she waited until night. Her team infiltrated silently and captured the resistance fighters without firing a shot. The children never knew danger had been so close. Afterward, her second-in-command asked why they risked themselves for alien children. "Because if we start killing children, we become exactly what they said we were," Lee replied. "We are conquerors, not monsters." On Earth, politics fractured humanity. One group wanted permanent military rule over all aliens. Another group, led by Ambassador So Min-han, advocated for eventual equality and integration. A third group wanted complete extermination of Vrelians. Do-Yoon found himself mediating between factions that hated each other. Building an empire was creating new divisions among humans. He realized that conquest had been the easy part. Creating lasting peace was far harder. He began secret negotiations with moderate Vrelian leaders. Could humans and Vrelians coexist? Could the conquered ever accept their conquerors? Could the conquerors ever see the conquered as equals? Dr. Hyeon Choi shifted his work from weapons to infrastructure. He designed new medical technology that worked for both human and Vrelian biology. He created environmental systems that could sustain both species. He proved that cooperation was possible. One day, a young Vrelian scientist thanked him. Human medicine had saved her mother's life. She looked at Hyeon with genuine gratitude. Hyeon went home that night and wept. For 3 years, he had created only death. One moment of genuine thanks broke through the walls he had built. Maybe redemption was possible after all. Lieutenant Commander Tae Yang-yoon commanded a mixed squadron. His unit included young Vrelians who had been children during the war. They flew together, trained together, trusted each other with their lives. It was strange at first. The Vrelians were former enemies, but they were also pilots who wanted to prove themselves. They worked hard and earned their place. Taeyang found himself defending them against human prejudice. When other officers questioned having aliens in military units, he reminded them that these Vrelians chose to serve humanity. That meant something. The crisis came suddenly. A radical human faction attempted a coup. They believed Do-Yoon had become weak. They thought mercy was betrayal of human interests. They seized control of a weapons platform orbiting SciFiPrime. The platform had enough firepower to destroy the entire planet. 4 billion Vrelians would die in hours. The coup leaders broadcast their demands. Remove all moderates from power. Institute permanent military rule. Begin systematic elimination of Vrelian populations. Do-Yoon refused. Mirai assembled loyal forces to retake the platform. Lee hunted the coup's leadership on the ground. The empire teetered on the edge of civil war. Taeyang's squadron received orders to stand down. The coup leaders claimed support from the military. They said soldiers would not fight fellow humans over aliens. They were wrong. Taeyang led his mixed squadron to join Mirai's fleet. When the coup leaders saw human and Vrelian ships flying together against them, they realized they had miscalculated. Most of the military sided with Doyen. The standoff lasted 6 hours. Mirai negotiated while Lee closed in on the ground. Finally, Lee's team stormed the platform's control center and captured the coup leaders. SciFiPrime was saved. 4 billion lives continued because humans chose to protect them. That night, Vrelians across the planet watched news broadcasts showing human pilots fighting other humans to save Vrelian lives. It changed something. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of trust. Doyen held a trial for the coup leaders. He could have executed them quietly. Instead, he made it public. He wanted everyone to see that justice applied to humans too. The trial revealed how divided humanity had become. Some still wanted total domination. Others wanted reconciliation. The verdict found the coup leaders guilty, but Doyen surprised everyone with the sentence: not execution, not imprisonment. Instead, they would serve on reconstruction teams, working alongside Vrelians to rebuild what the war destroyed. They would see the people they wanted to exterminate as individuals, not enemies. Some called it too lenient. Others called it wise. Doyen called it necessary. 5 years after the betrayal, Doyen convened a historic summit. Human and Vrelian leaders met to draft the Articles of Coexistence. The document would establish how both species could share space and power. The negotiations were difficult. Humans wanted security guarantees. Vrelians wanted autonomy. Both sides carried deep wounds. Trust was fragile. Mirai represented human military interests. She insisted on oversight and verification. A Vrelian diplomat named Kelrin represented his people. He had lost family in the war. So had Mirai. They understood each other's pain. Slowly, painfully, they found common ground. Vrelians would maintain local governance but accept human oversight on military matters. Humans would invest in Vrelian infrastructure and education. Both species would work together on defense and trade. It was not perfect. It would not heal all wounds, but it was a beginning. The signing ceremony took place on neutral ground. Cameras broadcasted across both civilizations. Doyen and the Vrelian High Chancellor signed first. Then Mirai and Kelrin, then representatives from every major world. When it was done, Doyen made a short speech. 5 years ago, we were betrayed. We responded with conquest because we had to survive. Today, we choose something harder than war. We choose to build peace with those who wronged us. Not because we have forgotten. We will never forget. But because survival is not enough. We want to build something better. The response was mixed. Some humans felt vindicated. Others felt betrayed. Some Vrelians felt hope. Others felt humiliated. But everyone agreed on one thing: the war was truly over. What came next would define both species for generations. The hard work of peace had only just begun. 20 years after the betrayal, the galaxy looked different. A generation had grown up knowing both war and peace. The wounds had not fully healed, but they were healing. Humanity's empire of conquest had become something unexpected, something better. Admiral Doyen Kim was now 77 years old. He had retired from active command, but served as an advisor to the Confederation Council. His hair was white, his face deeply lined, but his eyes still held that sharp intelligence. He spent his days writing memoirs and attending ceremonies. He carried the weight of billions of deaths, both human and Vrelian. History would judge whether his choices were right. He no longer worried about history's judgment. He had done what he believed necessary. Captain Mirai Park, now Governor Park, had transformed the Vrelian home sector. Human and Vrelian children attended school together. Mixed neighborhoods had become common. Trade flourished. Crime was low. It was not perfect, but it worked. She had done something remarkable. She had married Kelrin, the Vrelian diplomat she met during the peace negotiations. It shocked extremists on both sides. Some humans called her a traitor. Some Vrelians called her partner a collaborator. But most people saw it for what it was: two people from different species building a life together. They adopted orphans from both sides of the war and raised them as family. Their home proved coexistence was possible. Dr. Hyeon Choi had become one of the galaxy's most respected scientists. He won numerous prizes for medical breakthroughs that saved countless lives. His wartime work remained classified, buried in files few people could access. Young scientists often asked him about the war. He refused to discuss his weapons designs. He only talked about what came after, about choosing to build rather than destroy, about redemption through creation. Commander Ji-Wan Lee, now Commandant Lee, ran the Joint Military Academy. She trained officers from both human and Vrelian backgrounds. Her reputation was legendary. Students called her the Iron Instructor. She was strict, uncompromising, and completely fair. She never married. She never truly left the war behind. But she found purpose in preparing the next generation. She taught them to be strong but honorable, to defend their people without becoming monsters. One day, a young cadet asked her if she regretted the war. Lee thought for a long moment before answering. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret every life lost, but I do not regret ensuring humanity survived. The question is not whether we had to fight. The question is what we build after the fighting ends." Ambassador Soman Han became the architect of the Reconciliation Project. She established truth commissions where both species acknowledged their crimes. Humans admitted to excessive destruction. Vrelians admitted to genocide attempts. Both sides listened to victims. It was painful work. Some wounds were too deep to heal. Some survivors would never forgive. But the process ensured that future generations learned truth, not propaganda. Soman received death threats from extremists on both sides. She kept working. She believed that remembering honestly was the only way to prevent repetition. Admiral Taiyang Yun became the youngest admiral in human history at 35. He commanded a truly integrated fleet where humans and Vrelians served together as equals. His flagship, the UNS Unity, became a symbol of the new era. He had grown up during the war. He knew nothing but conflict until peace came. Now he protected that peace fiercely. His fleet patrolled Confederation borders, defending both species from external threats. He named his daughter Mirai, after Governor Park. He named his son Doyen, after Admiral Kim. He wanted his children to remember those who fought so their generation could live differently. On the 50th anniversary of the Concordia Massacre, representatives gathered for a memorial ceremony. The memorial was built on the ruins of Concordia Station. A human architect and Vrelian artist had designed it together. The structure bore the names of everyone who died. Human and Vrelian, military and civilian, perpetrators and victims, all equal in death. Admiral Yun delivered the keynote address. His voice carried across the assembled crowd. 50 years ago, treachery began a war. Betrayal sparked conquest. 15 billion humans died. Millions of Vrelians died. Both species nearly destroyed each other. My grandparents' generation fought that war. They did what they had to do. They conquered because the alternative was extinction. They were ruthless because mercy seemed impossible. But they made another choice. After conquest came the harder decision. They chose to build rather than simply rule. To integrate rather than dominate. To seek partnership rather than permanent subjugation. Today, human and Vrelian children grow up together. We work together. We defend each other. We are not one people, but we are partners. That partnership was built on the graves of billions. We must never forget what it cost. In the audience, elderly survivors from both species listened. Some sat with arms crossed, unable to forgive. Others held hands across the species divide, having found peace despite everything. Young people, for whom the war was history rather than memory, watched intently. They knew they inherited both the legacy of hatred and the promise of peace. What they built next would define the future. The ceremony concluded with a moment of silence. In that silence, everyone remembered. Humans remembered the betrayal and the grief. Vrelians remembered the conquest and the fear. Both remembered the cost of war. The memorial's central inscription, written in both languages, captured everything. It read, "After treachery came conquest. After conquest came understanding. After understanding came hope." Doyen attended the ceremony. It would be his last public appearance. He died peacefully 6 months later, attending a graduation ceremony where human and Vrelian students received their diplomas together. His final words, recorded in his memoirs, summarized his life's work. He wrote that humanity's choice to conquer was necessary for survival, but humanity's choice to build peace afterward was necessary for the soul. Both choices defined who humans were. 100 years after the betrayal, the Confederation had expanded to include 17 species. Humanity's conquest was remembered as both humanity's darkest moment and its greatest test. The galaxy learned important lessons from those years. They learned that humans, when betrayed, were capable of terrible vengeance, that humanity would not accept victimhood, that attempting to destroy humanity would only unleash something unstoppable. But they also learned that humans, when given a choice, could choose mercy over continued violence, that strength and compassion were not opposites, that conquerors could become partners. The United Human-Vrelian Confederation became the foundation for galactic peace. Not because the past was forgotten, nobody forgot, but because both species chose to build a different future. University students studied the war and history classes. They learned about the betrayal, the conquest, the occupation, and the reconciliation. They learned that peace was harder than war but more valuable. On Earth, a museum displayed artifacts from the war. Weapons that killed millions, treaties that ended the fighting, personal items from soldiers on both sides. The museum's mission statement explained its purpose. It read, "We remember so we never repeat. We honor the dead by building the peace they never knew. We teach the cost of betrayal and the value of trust." In the end, humanity's conquest succeeded in its primary goal. Humanity survived. The species that tried to destroy them failed completely. Human civilization not only endured but expanded across hundreds of worlds. But humanity's true victory was not military. It was deciding that survival alone was not enough. That conquest could lead to partnership. That enemies could become allies if both sides were willing to try. The galaxy learned humanity's fundamental nature through this war. Humans were capable of devastating violence when threatened. They would not tolerate betrayal. They would fight with everything they had to protect their own. But humans were also capable of forgiveness without forgetting, of ruling without cruelty, of building bridges across the deepest divides, of choosing hope when hatred seemed easier. The message to the galaxy was clear and would never be forgotten. Betray humanity, and you will face the full measure of human wrath. Nothing will stop them. Nothing will save you. They will take everything you have and break everything you built. But choose peace with humanity, and you will find partners who keep their word, who build rather than destroy, who remember the past but work for a better future. After their treachery, humanity opted for complete conquest. It was necessary. It was brutal. It was total. But after conquest, humanity opted for something harder. They opted for peace, for partnership, for a future where the children of enemies could become friends. That choice, more than any military victory, was humanity's greatest triumph. It proved that those who wage war can also build peace, that vengeance can give way to justice, that hope can grow even in the ashes of hatred. The war was over. The peace would continue, and the galaxy was better for both.